You're listening to TorontoFingerstyleGuitar.com.
Yeah, so what we do is I guess you're familiar because I sent you the email, but we record these interviews, and they seem to be going pretty well, and people are really been getting some great feedback. It's kind of just a informal dialogue more than really an interview, but yeah. So first I thought we'd talk about songwriting and kind of arranging, because so many guitar players seem to focus on practicing and maybe getting their chops together, and they really don't spend enough time on even arranging in the form of when you're jamming or improvising. It's almost like arranging on the fly and learning those skills. And obviously, your background, that was such an important part of what you do now and what you did in both the more commercial records like Asia and the early stuff. Yes, just so well arranged. You know, you play a verse the second time around, and somebody would always be doing something different. It might be done on acoustic. It might be done. The guitar part might be completely different, and so I just thought I'd get some of your feedback on how you got interested in such an early age at such sophisticated arrangements.
Yeah, well, I guess it only enforced it when I joined Yes, that I joined other people who enjoyed arranging and considered it was part of what you did. Somebody wrote a song, but then you kind of did things to it to make it the group song, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess that was happening in Tomorrow, and it was happening, you know, in most of my career, that there was a sense of it. Maybe you learn a bit from producers who, you know, in my early experience, you know, producer would say, like, well, I'm going to go out when I come back, work out how you're going to play this song. You know?
Yeah.
So it usually fell on the group to do that. Of course, producers can help, like Bruce Fairbairn. He came in and helped, yes, arranging ideas as we were rehearsing The Ladder. So at times you get a really good input, and then you can even more see what's going on and how the decisions are made. So for our topic, actually, I mean, as you say, writing comes out of this sort of well inside people, and they write things, and, you know, great. But to arrange it, to make it a cohesive piece of music is a sort of skill that you learn, I think, over years. I don't think you can learn this at music school so much, because every time you meet new music, you have to make decisions about it, and nobody can really prepare that for you. But that's partly what it is. I think there's a sort of guideline you could follow. I'm not sure I could, like, come up with that guideline all in one sentence, but I guess it would be along the lines of, you know, the importance of intros and outros were always really big with me. You know, I love a great intro, lots of guitar intros that I've done. They've come out of an arrangement idea where I've got something later, maybe, or it's going to be a part of music we're going to play later.
Yeah,
so there's games you can play, if you like, and you could try and avoid the, you know, verse, chorus, you know, verse, chorus, middle, eight verse. You know, you can play around with those pop rock scenarios, but they can disguise, in fact, a lot of other music. And when Yes wrote Yours in No Disgrace, I think that was one of the first really long intros we had. You know, we had a start-up intro, we had a thematic intro, you know, we had all this stuff. And I think that's really, you can see it easiest in classical music, because sometimes you're not even really sure what the tune is, but there's a lot going on. And I think I'm currently working with one or two arrangers, actually, and I like that in my work, that I actually work with somebody. Sometimes I can give my music to somebody, like Andrew Jackman before he passed away, and I can kind of throw it at him, and he can come back. When you write your own music, it's actually quite hard. So when you collaborate with other people, that's the time when the arrangements can come at the bass player and say, oh, I like playing this, you know, this pedal behind that.
Right.
You go, oh, that's a good idea. So you've got to, it's all about people skills, really. Arranging is hearing what somebody does and being able to compliment them and say, well, look, can we just do that for like 8 bars instead of like 64, you know? And it's the boldness to be able to shape music. I think it's really, and if you think like that, it isn't really a puzzling musical dilemma. It's just an approach. It's just something you do. I read that Kenny Burrell said in the 20th Century Guitar magazine last month about, because the guy said to him, the interviewer said, you know, how did you keep that sound you always had, you know, and he was always interested in the production, you know, he was always guiding his, because when you're a guitarist, you not only got to guide your sound, but also you've got to guide your arrangements, because otherwise you won't get any opportunities, or maybe you get enough, but allow other people to have, you know, certainly in Yes, we were always trying to feature different people at different times, so that's what an arrangement is, really. it's not allowing the singer to start the song, sing all the way through, and then end it. Oh, thank you, that was fun. Can I play something?
And it takes a lot of energy sometimes to actually push through some ideas, because sometimes the singer just wants to start with the vocal, you know?
Well, you might do. You're right about how much strength you need, because that's what I said about people skills. It's almost learning about yourself. You've got to learn how to turn it round, turn it back. Somebody says, oh, I don't like that, and you feel hurt, you know, but you shouldn't, because he doesn't mean, I don't like any of your music. All he's saying is, I don't like those 4 bars. You know?
Yeah.
And if you can rub with that, if you can work with that, you're going to make good arrangements, and it's teamwork. But eventually, of course, you know, like I do, I sit here and I'm arranging guitar. I get a tune and I like the tune. Oh, I love this tune. I'll play it to bits, and then I'm like, what the hell am I going to? Where's it going to fit? That's really actually more difficult than writing a tune.
Yeah.
So how to compose, like for instance, a guitar solo guitar piece, that's particularly exciting, but it's particularly, you know, taxing, because, you know, it's only you and it's guitar and 6 strings. You've got to make that an arrangement. It can't just be like a tune, then another tune, then another tune, good night. There has to be some sort of growth, and I think that's what arrangement is. It's sort of like growth.
Yeah, I think you know, what's great about the homebrew CDs, where you have your you release your demos and you know, with some notes and stuff. And I thought one thing that really caught me, which I thought was great, was the Between Your Smiles tune that ended up being on the Anderson Bruford Wakeman Howe record, and how what a kind of contained singer-songwriter type of song it was, coming from well, you know, a guitar player that's known for a lot of guitar playing, and maybe some people kind of would assume that you would actually be in the band or be in the room and then offer up all this kind of music or these riffs and then let the singer do his bit, but you're actually really a songwriter in a sense as well. And I thought that the really interesting thing about those records is that you do get some insight into just how dramatically tunes can change.
Yeah, well, thanks for saying that. And also, thanks for raising that point, that's a good example of arrangement, because, you know, I might sit in my studio and, like, have fun, play stuff, and then I might even think, that's it, good night, you know, that's it. But if somebody else, they'll have a different take on it.
Yeah.
And that's what can grow. Certainly if you collaborate, put one of their songs with one of yours. But, that's something that, I think that's why I bothered to start Homebrew in the first place, because I did like some of those early arrangements, you know, where I hadn't thought about it for long. I just written it, and I just thought, well, this is the only way I can really put it down, you know.
Yeah.
And they did bring me some pleasure, you know, and I guess it wasn't my ego to say, oh, this is how I originally wrote it. It was really just to say, well, this is another take on it, and it's another mood. And,
well, we were talking about me and some musician friends on the weekend, we're talking about a Canadian guitar player who released another record, and the guy that I know had worked with the Canadian guys, and he says the demo's way better than the record, and of course they went down to Nashville to make it with some other guys. And, you know, so you hear that a lot of how sometimes, you know, the demo may not necessarily be as polished, but sometimes there's usually some spark there that's kind of interesting.
I'll throw this in there. I mean, I played with Queen on their record in Innuendo, and when I was there, they kind of explained to me that all their records were the demos. I mean, they never did another. They did a demo, and then they went, well, that's pretty, let's change it there. Oh, let's put that in there. And then they just kept working on it until it was finished. And I guess I could have done that with my homebrew tracks. I could have said, well, that was plan A, but now how do I make this more presentable? And I guess in a way I did that with albums like, I started doing it with the Grand Scheme of Things, where a lot of tracks actually were the originals. And that's where I can't look back so often with homebrew on certain albums where I've actually used the demo as my master. And happily, you know, really excitedly, that in a way there was something there, and I didn't need to change it a lot. So,
but it's exciting to hear it before it goes through that filter, you know? Yeah,
well, guys that go off, you know, to Nashville, make the record, there's the demo, and they lose so much of that personality, you know? And the bands notice that, like you say, and I've noticed it with quite a few records I've made, where, in fact, the way we even had it sounding in the studio before it was mixed was a hell of a lot better than the way it came out.
Right, yeah.
It was sitting, and the guitar was fighting the keyboards, and the vocals were fighting the harmonies, and everything was sort of fighting. But once you get it steriled up, and everything's, oh yeah, that's nice, oh yeah, nothing happens.
Well, it's amazing how,
happening.
Yeah, you can have a great part, but if you can't hear it, then it's kind of wasted, and you can't even.
Well, yeah,
you know,
don't go there. That's always a loss for me. I've always wanted to remix, you know, like Union or ABWH, just because the guitar just. without me being there, it just isn't right, and it never usually is.
Yeah, because you're the guy who knows.
I've got to put my pennyworth in, like Kenny Burrell did.
Yeah.
I've got to put my pennyworth in to say, hang on, that guitar is not warm enough, or it's too dull, or it's got no perspective, or there's so many things you might say, as well as, can you turn it up a bit?
Yeah.
Can I actually hear it? So don't go there, because that's a vast topic of my discontent. That's to be expected with the amount of records I've made. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. A great example of that is Chester and Lester, because they did the demos, and then Les goes, "Okay, I got to get on a plane Monday," because Chet said, "Well, we got to do the record on Monday." He goes, "No, I'm done." And so they released basically the demos. They fixed a couple things, but that's why it's got so much personality.
That's right.
But great. So the other thing I wanted to mention was, you just lately you've released several solo records, and obviously, Skyline has kind of got a more of an ethereal kind of, for lack of a better word, new age kind of slant elements, the rock and blues kind of roots thing, and Spectrum kind of combines the mishmash of all those styles. And I thought it was interesting, too, that even Dylan almost has some Bill Bruford-ish qualities, I guess, with the jazz background, which you're probably quite comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I just wondered what you've got besides. We'll talk about the Steve Howe trio in a second, but is there anything you felt? I remember Quantum Guitar was supposed to be, I think, an all pedal steel or an all steel kind of focused guitar.
It was going to be called Quantum Steel. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is there what are you thinking next? Is it anything like a all solo acoustic or I liked some of the pieces like I don't know how to say Hecla Lava and Sand Double, where you're just improvising. I thought that was really kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you touched on something quite dear. I mean, I would think it can be a bit dangerous for musicians to spill out what they're going to do in the next couple of years as far as releases,
Yeah.
So you touched on some things that I am doing, yeah. I mean, I am working on a record that sort of, I still don't think I've done the record yet, but I want to do that is solo guitar, that maybe is is partly acoustic and partly electric. But the compositions on that will mostly be new. Or there'll be tunes I didn't write that I've never recorded, that kind of approach. But it's going to feature not that kind of Sand Devil and those kind of area was quite experimental. I like guitar processes, and that's really what I was into. But now I'm actually like trying to take on the Chet Atkins tradition a little, and making my tunes really work for electric guitar in a semi-Chet style.
Yeah.
So of course I did Sketches in the Sun, which was on electric, and I guess that I like to do that. So I'm compiling that, and I've got other projects. Well, as I said, I'm working with an arranger on a very big, adventurous project with I can't really say because then I'll say it.
Yeah.
But I'm working with an arranger on another project, and I've also got some really great rocking tapes from my own studio with guests on it and different vocalists. I don't think I sing on it unless I end up doing one song, but at the moment I'm not the vocalist, I'm the guitarist. I'm the sort of thread through these different tracks that I've accumulated over the years, and they really excite me, so I'm finishing that up. So I guess what you said when you first opened up about the albums is that I really felt after Spectrum, I look back and I've done 10 solo albums, 3 volumes of Homebrew and 2 live albums, as well as Mothballs, which wasn't really released internationally as a look at my 60s recordings. Mm-hmm. So I really felt like I'd really sort of achieved something, but in another way, I wanted to achieve something else. So I started to look much slower at the music. In other words, I've got like 2 or 3 tracks that I've been working on for 2 years that I keep going back and going, not quite, but when I do this, maybe I'll be, they're moving along very slowly. And I did that with my first 2 albums, actually. Some of the Steve Howe album was really started life as beginnings, but it didn't get finished. I wasn't happy, with what it was. So I do take on a lot of writing, and I really enjoy that. So I've got a sort of bank of music behind me, and ranging in styles and quality, no doubt. But nevertheless, it allows me to draw on it, and that's really how I make my solo albums. It isn't. I mean, Spectrum is an exception. I kind of went right. This is all going to be quite fresh. Most of it is, stuff I wrote more or less at that time, and I compiled it at that time. So I like that too. But I really felt many things. I guess I can't put them all into words, but I want to keep broadening my horizons, but I want to keep every now and again going back to bass, So I guess these tracks that I'm compiling will eventually become my next solo album that won't be, an acoustic record or solo guitar, a full-on record and with new compositions. And I think that'll take a little bit longer to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
But meantime, I'm really pleased, that I've got other things to do.
Yeah, I just thought Spectrum was great because of all the detail in the writing and all the little melodies and just
very, very
popping up everywhere.
I don't think I like Quantum and Turbulence.
Well,
It's totally those three are like a triplet of mainly electric guitar and sort of adventurous in the prog rock direction more than anything else.
Yeah.
I think that's the flag of those albums is a sort of I do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of wah-wah, there's lots of delays, there's loads of guitars, there's steels coming in. It's the kind of anything goes picture, but not acoustic. Not so long on any of those three albums. Am I in the sort of gentle mode? I put a little of those, like I did with that really nice tune on Quantum. The name escapes
Suddenly?
me for a second. But there's one acoustic track on Quantum, and it's called. I love the title too, but I can't remember it.
Yeah.
So. I push myself in that foggy guitar with effects and
it's not the long track, Suddenly, like the 10-minute track. 'Cause that's
Suddenly,
a great track.
that was great fun.
Yeah.
And that was an expansion of a piece of music I've been working on for years. And
it's funny because the demo on Homebrew was like not even a couple of minutes, right? But it actually turned into almost.
Is there a version of it on Homebrew?
Yeah.
What,
the third one, the third Homebrew. Yeah.
Suddenly?
Yeah, it might be called something else, but it's essentially. Yeah, it's essentially
the thematic side.
Yeah, right.
And not a sort of arrangement. So, there's been a few of those.
Yeah. Well, that's great that because I think another thing that was cool when you had the workshop last September or October, you were talking about kind of logging and constantly, just logging ideas and recording, kind of filing them away, which is great to kind of do. I mean, a lot of people, if you have your own studio, you can do it one way or another. One way, I think, to do is just to always be recording and writing, so that way you're always going to have something to refer back on and maybe, use.
Well, I like the process of doing it whether you don't have any expectations about quality. You
right.
Put it on the board. You're just standing like I am here. So I think, hang on, that's a good idea. Plunk it down instead of going in a studio and starting to record it. It's a bit premature. I like a good wine. I like to lay the music down and go, oh, that's pretty good. Now, every now and again, I will jump right back to the last thing I did. I'll go, hang on, I'm looking for something for some songwriting I'm doing with somebody else. I just did this last week. I wanted to add something, and instead of looking back in my sort of file, I thought, last week I was doing something. I might just work with this. And it did, So in a way, it's good to have a top shelf and a bottom shelf, where
right.
you can draw out. I mean, I'm really lucky that my songwriting, and funny enough, this was what I wanted to do as much as I did play the guitar, funny enough.
Well, that's probably a secret to maybe your success too, though, eh?
Well, when I started, my only reference point, first was guitarist, but then I met Keith West and we formed a group. I think then, when Keith had songs and he'd play me Why Like Butter thing, it convinced me that I should write songs. I had been writing them before that, but once I'd met Keith, I knew the means where you could get your songs into the group. Before that, it was all like on this weird cassette no, it wasn't actually cassettes. It was reel-to-reel tapes, Telefunken tape machine. And of course, it was very difficult to record on them. But you couldn't overdub. You could just play something, and that's what I called songwriting. And
well, yeah, because some of that Keith West was in Bodas too, right?
Keith produced Bodas.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, right. Because he was in Tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. I think what's interesting about you mentioned quantum guitar and especially Spectrum is I noticed on quantum guitar you're using some SansAm, some direct sounds, and it kind of gave it a little bit of a twist sonically. It started to kind of sound a mixture of kind of older sounds and new sounds, and I think what's refreshing, especially with the headphones, with some of the Line 6 stuff, because it's mostly all Line 6 on Spectrum, is you can talk about, I guess, some of the stuff that's been going on lately. You've been using all Line 6 Live, and that's a kind of, I think it's working out pretty good.
Well, yeah, I'm really, really happy with the Veta 2 amp too. The programming I've got for Asia is fantastic. I mean, we did it. We got it kind of right, and then we did it, and then I've been using it every night. Go on and stop. Now, I didn't do that before. I didn't feel it was all self-contained and all in one box, and thank you very much. But it has, and I plan to do that, if the big ship's called Yes sales next year.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So you'll be using it with Yes, you think, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Well, not definitely. I mean, I hope to, because I feel I'll be able to get more sounds, more individual sounds per night.
Oh, yeah.
That are nice texture, the right sounds for each song.
How long do you think it would take you to program program the gear for like a Yes tour?
Well, it took me 2 days to do Asia.
Really?
Yeah, I just sat down with the first album, and we started with Jan, Jan, Jan. I said, listen to that, Jan, Jan, Jan. And Steve Barrett, who's a guitar specialist here, he does all the programming for me. And
great.
I'm learning it, but he it's like he knows it.
So do you travel with two entire systems then? Do you have like a backup?
Yeah, well, I always have a spare amp. Well, one night I didn't, but because the one night I didn't have it was the one night I needed it in Italy. I'll tell you a funny story, very briefly. It went completely haywire. Something went wrong with it, and it wouldn't do anything. So I had to work out just enough where I could do certain songs that didn't have program changes. But going back to its positive, it's not let me down. That's the only time it let me down. And so it's been so reliable, it's unbelievable. I have a spare one, which we program with the MIDI, like we put the same programs in any amp, really, any that series. But drawing into the smaller version, the Pod XT Live thing, that's quite good. And once you program that yourself and get your own noises in it. So I found that's really good for solo, and I'm using it right now doing overdubs. I just plug into it with a Variax. And then I'm a Strat, Tele, Semi, Les Paul. I've got everything in one guitar, and I've got every noise I can think of down there.
Yeah.
It's quite intimidating. I mean, I've got a 5530, I've got my 175, but if I'm just scanning through some quick overdubs on demos, I think, I'll use a Variax, because it's a 175, but the two pickups position, fine. I'll go with that. I'll play with that.
Well, when you used it with Yes to get the sitar sounds and stuff, it was it sounded great. And it's easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be easier than carting a choral sitar around for one song, because it'll be many things. It'll be acoustics, and it'll be, I had it with Yes for the sitar last time, and it was already starting to move into my life, which I love. So, they're building me a special guitar,
and when will that be? Is there kind of a time frame on that, or?
Well, I'm going to be getting it quite soon, actually.
Oh, great!
It's
now
been a long time in the making. And,
how is it going to be different than the other Line 6 guitars?
Well, I can't tell you yet. I think once this one's in my hands, I'll be able to talk about it more freely, because I don't yet know. I mean, we're not absolutely sure we can go into production with a guitar like this, but that was one of the ideas we had. So
yeah.
Once we've decided yay or nay, then I'll be able to talk about it and describe it. But I hope to be using it mainly, because that's kind of what it's all about. Admittedly, I do like, the concept that Fender have done with the Strat is a get back at Line 6, quite clever one. More minimal, just a couple of things. But it's good to have a Tele and a Strat and acoustic, all in one guitar. But I got spoiled because, there's things on this Line 6 that I really do rate. Like this, on Spectrum, actually, there's the part that goes to... Right. I'm trying to think of the song title, but I'm not actually on song title.
No, I know, because you don't really look at the CD jackets anymore, so you kind of miss the titles.
Well, occasionally. But anyway, one of those guitars is a 1961 Super 400 on the front pickup. The other side is a Line 6 Super 400 front pickup, and you cannot tell the difference. It sounds like two Super 400s. Well, I mean, in a way it is, but that convinced me pretty far. Of course, it's an animal. We all know and love the guitar, how you play it, how you feel when you play it, what the fingerboard's like. All these things are quite important. Lo and behold, the Plek machine comes along, and guitar manufacturers are putting their guitars through it, because they really can sort out a lot of make a guitar much smoother to play. So there's a lot happening in the guitar world, you know. I really get a guitar player magazine or something and read it and go, Jesus, I could start ordering online about 3 boxes and 6 wire.
Well, it's changed. It's definitely changing things, especially when you consider how much it costs to ship large stuff around. I mean, it's for working musicians, it saves them a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to ask too about some of your antique guitars and stuff that are featured in your book. Are some of them not that usable?
Well, there's 3 of them that are quite usable. The Panormo is completely usable. I mean, I played that on one of my albums. On the acoustic album, I played a whole piece on that.
Is that on the
Little Galliard?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So that's played on the guitar. It's a wonderful guitar, and that plays great. The guitar that I call the Shield guitar, which is really a lyre guitar that's shaped like a shield, that plays fine as well.
Oh, yeah.
You can tune that up to pitch, and off you go. And there's a marvellous guitar that's a 10-string. It's somewhere between the Baroque guitar and... Well, before the Baroque guitar went to 4 courses, this was a 5-course guitar.
Yeah.
So it's a 10-string guitar, 5 courses, and that is a wonderful sound. But none of the other lyre guitars dare I really tune up, because I don't think any of them are... Well, I wouldn't say solid enough, but I wouldn't say I'd like to chance it with...
You worry about them just exploding if you tune them right up to pitch.
They're usually tuned to a very low pitch.
Yeah.
Somewhere like F or C or something, way down below anything that's recognizable, just to convince me that it's really strung up. Because obviously if a string is too loose, it doesn't even sit on the guitar. It wants to fall off.
And then, of course, the intonation would be almost impossible anyway, because it'd be so flimsy.
But it seems unfair to test those guitars in that way. But the Panormo, as I say, and the guitar that we now do know when we put it in the book, we didn't know who made it, but we tracked down the maker of the 5, or was it one of the lyre guitars? I'm just not thinking. But anyway, we've had a bit more luck with some of the anonymous guitars. They're no longer anonymous, but they're very... What I'm really unhappy about is that in all the time I've had it, I know this sounds very mercenary, but nobody appreciates these guitars, the value of them. When you look at violins, flutes, cellos, harpsichords, they've gone up remarkably, and so they would have been a much better investment. But for my part, I wanted lyre guitars and I wanted antique guitars, and there's hardly any real increasement in value, which shows a complete lack of appreciation for their value as unique instruments, because these are far more unique than something built in 1920, which people pay $75,000 for. But these things are totally, they're totally amazing. And I've rarely sold one. I sold one to Scott Chinnery before he died, which was a very unusual harp guitar that didn't look like anything like a harp. It looked like a harp, not a guitar.
Right.
But it was actually a guitar. So they've been wonderful to have, and I enjoy them. One of the favourite ways I like is to get a fireplace and put 5 lyre guitars actually on the fireplace. And this is how they're quite often displayed in France. You go in some old houses and you'll see, of course they didn't light the fire with them up there, but they're wonderful. They're wonderful shapes, and I think art and guitars are so close, and most probably not any closer than lyre guitars.
Yeah, interesting. And no, I guess I was going to say any desire to really build guitars yourself, but you've been so involved with, I guess, a lot of the makers over the years. That's kind of I guess you've got enough of that out of you.
You can't print this yet, but Martin and I are back talking together, and we're going to bring out a new Steve Howe signature model. It's
really?
An MC28, really, but we're going to soup it up a little bit, and it might have a few features that the old one didn't have, because they discontinued that model. And when Dick saw me playing it, he said, "That guitar is so you. It's amazing."
Now, is that similar to the Eric Clapton model?
No. This is a slightly slimmer cutaway guitar. It's a bit like, I think, MC28 stopped, I guess, in the early 90s, and then they went to HG or something. So
I'm not sure,
it's an intermediate size. I think it's got mahogany back, and that's partly what I like about it, I think. But they're a beautiful scale guitar. There's, let me think, I'm using it in most of the current DVDs. I don't know whether Asia's about to bring out a DVD called Fantasia, and I played in that in one song.
Oh, great! So
in Intersection Blues on it, actually.
Well, I look forward to that because I've been I used to have some Martins, but I've been looking at maybe picking one up. So maybe I'll wait for that. That sounds great.
Yeah, well, they warned me it'll be a year. They're a year behind. I mean, it's a year, and now they want to do it right. It'll take a year.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to that because the 0018 Steve Howe was really nice, and I was very happy with that. I still love my 53, of course, because that is most probably one of the best acoustic guitars ever made, for me.
And you think something happens to the molecular structure over time?
Well, you know what's important? You got to play it.
Yeah.
You see, that's what's great about my 175. People ask me, why is that? What's so great about that guitar? I said, well, what's great about it is that I liked playing it so much. I played the hell out of it.
It seems to sound better with time.
I think time, performance, and I think something really that we really don't understand about our personalities and about our sound, because we all do make a different sound, and I think when you get used to a guitar, like I say, when I gently play my 0018, I can't help but think, that's great. That sounds great, because in a way, my head, my ears, believe it's great, you know what I mean? And, and I think that, I think this side of it, the playing, your fingers, knowing the guitar, I think there's some very strange intrinsic things that we really don't understand, which I'm quite happy about, is that there is something else going on, and we don't know what it is, and perhaps it's for good reason.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to kind of, I usually ask guitar players this type of thing, just about the idea, you can call it cross-training, you can call it whatever, meditation, I know you're involved in archery, these other things, yoga, whatever, can kind of really spill over to the music. I think too many musicians just kind of do nothing but play their instrument, and I think there's a lot of guys and athletes in particular do the same thing. They'll train in another discipline, and they'll find that really kind of changes their perspective and outlook on their main thing. I mean,
well, I usually start by saying it starts when you start making decisions for yourself, real decisions, like when I went vegetarian. To me, that was something I was self-motivated to do, and I did it. Because I did that, I found a lot of other decisions really easy, anything in food is easy. If it doesn't agree with me, I don't eat it.
Right.
If I don't like it, I don't eat it. I'm totally instinctive. I go with my feelings. So when you look at how to prepare for music, especially if you take touring, and we might have spoken about it before, So archery, unfortunately, was something that taught me a lot, but I couldn't do it because my wrists weren't really strong enough for 36-pound bows twanging off my hands. It's the exact opposite of really what I do with the guitar. But I love imaginary archery, and I love archery generally. But I use meditation. I prepare with meditation because it's the only way I can, just before going on stage, I can come out of it and go, oh, I'm going on stage.
Yeah, because
it's such a great state of mind to go in because you've kind of forgotten the rest of the things that got you there. You've forgotten your problems. You've forgotten. For a moment, you've allowed yourself to get properly prepared. I think it is a terrific preparation, but it takes years. The trouble is people think, oh, meditation. Oh, I'll take some of that like a medicine. But of course, it's a very slow process, a very healthy process, but it's a very slow process.
Yeah.
And it's affecting one part of your life, which is the way you think. And that's the thing a lot of people have a lot of trouble with, But most people think just the idea of meditation, I couldn't possibly do that. Yeah, I agree, because it took me, I was most probably 30 or something when I started. So I agree that it's not easy, but there again, children can do it very easily. And it's just about finding an outlet for it and not getting involved in some cult that wants to, do things to you, but just a free-reigning, out there, Zen, Buddhism, transcendental meditation, whatever one appeals to you, or whichever one you like, sort of drawn to, or not at all, and wait for something simpler. I mean, you can do it all yourself. You can get a book, and look at this. You can't learn every meditation in the book because many of them are quite precious, and you learn through experience with another human being, which is the best way to learn. But you can get the rough idea. You can have some fun with it, and then maybe see if it fits with your music. I don't think all these things happen just like a knock-on effect. Well, I think, no, I'll take that back. They happen with a knock-on effect, but you have to wait for it.
Yeah.
It's not the instant cure, but it's the long-term cure.
Well, I think certain epiphanies or certain peak experiences or things can happen very quickly, and then, of course, that's going to settle down. You're going to go back to the drudgery of day-to-day work, and you have to kind of maintain that over a long, as you say, a long period of time to really see progress. But I think little things, and even, before a show, great, but even just maintaining it on a daily basis will kind of change your approach.
Yeah, we're just talking about the show perspective after you've practiced it and you've been able to do it, because you certainly couldn't, well, I would doubt whether somebody could be taught meditation and do it just before they're going to go on stage. I think they would find that quite confusing, just because you've got to take meditation for what it is, and it is a nothingness. It's an empty oneness of nothingness, and until your mind's got used to you doing that, you're going to be going, I'm not doing it. I don't think I'm doing it. I'm not really doing it. I'm thinking, see, I was thinking. I'm not doing it. But that's a trick, that your conscious mind wants to play to not let you go away, from your responsibilities and all these stuff we've got built around us. Anyway, let's try and keep this to 5 minutes more, because it's been really nice talking to you.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah, I'm going to run out of my... got about 5 minutes left on my machine, I think. So, yeah, no, it's great. I love talking about that stuff, because I think it's important, and or certainly it's certainly helpful to some people, and it's something that is often glossed over, especially with magazines now. There's just not a lot of space.
Yeah. But like you said, what you were saying also, if we avoid mentioning meditation again, but what your life consists of is important for your music. And you've got to kind of like it. If meditation helps you like your life, whatever it is, whatever your station, it may well do that. But also, you've got to have some interest, and you've got to have some perspective on whether your music's a kind of voice, an inner voice. You don't know what it's saying, but it's saying something about you. And if that's all bottled up and not coming out, then find a way of doing that. But
well, that's what Big Al said from Rush. He said, he wasn't talking about meditation particularly, but he's talking about getting other hobbies, golf, doing things that makes him a happier musician on the road. And that's
like
important.
Remote control cars, I know, and bicycles.
So, what else we got to cover? I guess. No, I also wanted to say, it's surprising. I go down to Nashville to the Chet Atkins convention. I've gotten to know a lot of some of the American players, and there's a lot of the great players that I've seen lately. Stephen Bennett, great harp guitar player. Tony McManus, who's a great Celtic player. He lives over here now, but he's originally from Scotland. These guys are all, they'll just be sitting around somewhere, and they'll just start playing. Tony McManus was sitting by the pool last year, and he just started playing Turn of the Century. And Stephen Bennett, can play a bang-up version of the clap. It's just funny how so much of your stuff is spilled over to people that you just really wouldn't think are,
Well, I've had immense pleasure with that with Mood for a Day, because I go to so many places, and one of their associations with me is, I learnt Mood for a Day, or my sons learnt Mood for a Day, or and it was a different sort of popularity that it had from Fragile, and it kind of grew to be this is where I allow myself just a little pride, because as we talked about, first of all, composition it was important to me, and to have written even something like Get This in the Sun, if that's the only tune I'd ever written, I'd be pretty happy. It's a voice of mine. It's a way I see music, and just for a glimpse, I saw it. Like I said, Clap was the first instrumental, really a complete piece I'd ever written. And I still love playing it, because in a way it says a lot about me. It's a lot of my lyrics, it's a lot of my style, it's a great deal about me. So I should be proud of it, and I am. So, but that doesn't mean to say I don't want to do other things, and I do. And we haven't mentioned the trio, which we just said. That is a huge step for me, and it's one that I've taken so naturally. It's come at the right time.
Well, I just started to. Sorry?
It means I play my 175 all night long, which is great.
Well, Well, I didn't know what to expect. I heard about it. I looked it up on YouTube, and I just thought it was awesome. I mean, it was really a surprise. I had no idea. I had something else in mind of what you were going to do, and it just sounded so kind of hip and like radical. I mean, you know what I mean, compared to what I was expecting.
From what I've done, and we're recording next month. And,
oh, great!
We hope to, we don't know if we're going to get an album then, but we hope we do. And we're going to kind of move along with the project a bit more next year and take every opportunity that I can get. Once Yes has decided which part of the year it ventures to work in, which I think might be the middle part. So it allows me some time to get on with that. And we did some dates in May, which you know about, and then we've got this recording, and we're just kind of like building it. It's a very nice place.
Well, hopefully you get to bring it over here, too. I don't know.
Absolutely.
That would be awesome.
Canada would be a prime target, especially with the work I did with Martin Taylor that year when I met some promoters up in Montreal as well. There's a lot of contacts that I think are perfect for us, and it's not so troublesome as America, with the work permits and all that.
Right.
It most probably would be an easy swing to make, so I want to do that. I really do.
Well, awesome,
Steve. I do like Canada. I'm not just saying that because we're talking, but it's a nice place in North America.
Well, you spent a lot of time here. I mean, you've probably come here, and you probably know which shops and restaurants to go. You've been here so many times.
But also, I've got a lot of respect for how many incredibly talented artists have come out of Canada.
Yeah, there really are.
It's an enormous list, and it's a beautiful list. And just to mention two would be Neil Young and Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what they're enormous. In my life, Joni Mitchell's most probably one of the, like the Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, but somehow more of a singer than either of them. Well, no, I wasn't say that about Joan Baez, but more of a writer, obviously, because of her wealth of compositions.
And a great guitar player in her own way,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right then, David. It's been very nice talking to you.
Awesome, Steve.
Flashes around.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you next year, maybe.
Yeah, well, drop me an email now and again, and
great.
I'll let you know if something comes up for Canada when it does.
Awesome, Steve.
All right then.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Cheers.
Talk to you.
Now.
See you.